Welcome to Agribiotech, where the focus is on the relevance of biotechnology to Nigeria's agricultural needs. I am Lara Afolayan. Today's episode is reaching you from South Africa. It is not surprising that Agribiotech is here. South Africa has used genetic modification in agriculture for 21 years now. The country grew its first genetically modified cotton in 1997, and virtually no conventional cotton is produced in the country at the moment. This means the cotton in South Africa is 100% genetically modified. Over 80% of the maize produced here is genetically modified, while locally produced soybeans like cotton is 100% genetically modified. On the InFocus segment of the program today, we shall be looking at how South Africa arrived at this point and how biotechnology has worked for the country agriculturally. I shall as well be chatting with concerned parties in this process, while also looking at the water-efficient maize for agriculture project. We begin with what's new in the world of biotechnology and agriculture around the world.
Ethiopia has authorized cultivation of biotech crops. It has granted 2 landmark approvals for environmental release of the BT cotton and research trials on genetically modified maize. From the country's Environment, Forest and Climate Change Minister, Gamado Dale, to the Ethiopian Institute of Agricultural Research indicates the country will start with 2 BT cotton hybrids. They are JKCH1050 and JKCH1947. The release for BT cotton is based on experts' analysis of the results from 2 season confined field trials conducted under the supervision of the Biosafety Affairs Directorate of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, as well as a biosafety technical working team drawn from different institutions that have evaluated the final report submitted by the applicant. Ethiopia identifies cotton as a strategically important crop to provide raw materials for its rapidly growing textile sector. It also expects this to generate thousands of jobs in the cotton subsector's value chain. The United Kingdom has approved its first gene-edited crop trial for camelina oil seed. This is to allow the plant to produce omega-3 fish oils, which is one of the most popular food supplements. The camelina oil seed crops have their genetic code altered in a way that could have happened naturally. Scientists say gene editing can reduce time taken to engineer new plants from decades to months. They say this technology could help Britain maintain a sustainable source of fish oils in the face of depleted oil stocks. The United States Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, says genome editing is a safe and effective tool for plant breeders to adopt in generating new crop varieties with superior performance and greater nutritional value. Perdue made this known in a statement which provides clarification on the department's oversight of plants produced through new breeding technologies, including genome editing. The U.S. Agricultural Secretary says the use of such technologies was important for better crops and improved nutrition around the world.
As I said earlier, cotton, maize and soybeans are genetically modified in South Africa. Let's see how this process evolved in the country, which is the 9th largest producer of genetically modified crops in the world.
3 genetically modified crops are cultivated in South Africa. They include cotton, maize and soybeans. The insect-resistant cotton was first grown in the country in 1997. This has now been extended to cultivation of herbicide-tolerant cotton and double-stacked herbicide-tolerant insect-resistant cotton. Data shows there is virtually no conventional cotton grown in South Africa presently, and the herbicide-tolerant, insect-resistant cotton constitutes 95% of cotton planted in the country.
Industry was very keen, industry being the farmers. They were very keen to see, they wanted to be enabled to use the technology to benefit their lives. In other words, they wanted to develop better crops that would help with pest resistance or herbicide tolerance. And so this was driven by the farmers and by industry because they could see a benefit to using the technology. The Gmo Act was published during Nelson Mandela's presidency, and there hasn't been a kickback against it. It's been seen as a very positive thing. We've got various mechanisms to ensure that the public has an opportunity to say something about the GMO crops that are developed. We have various checks and balances to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can manage it.
We planted the GMs and non-GMs, for the farmers to see if maybe there will be a difference in the yield. And then so far, I'm glad to say that we have assisted, I think, about 70, if not 80, farmers, or we did about 80 demonstrations that we demonstrated the technology to the farmers. And then what the farmers are saying that, we also saw that ourselves. And then the yield, comparing the yield between the GM and the non-GM, honestly, and then the GM is outperforming the non-GM. And then the farmers ended up wanting the technology, not us forcing them in that particular technology. It's the farmers themselves, after they realized that the technology indeed it works, and they said, what, and then they want to go this particular way.
The insect-resistant maize was first cultivated in the country in 1998. 86% of the country's maize is now genetically modified. The double-stacked herbicide-tolerant insect-resistant maize accounts for most of the genetically modified maize at 49%, while the BT maize is 35%. The Water Efficient Maize for Africa project is to help develop genetically engineered, drought-tolerant and insect-protected African maize varieties in sub-Saharan Africa. This project is helping drive the production of genetically modified maize in South Africa.
When we started the issue of demonstrations, there were some other farmers who were getting about 2 tons, a hectare. But after starting to utilize the technology, and then they were getting about 6-7 tons per hectare. And then, it helped them in making sure that, they increase their production. And then instead of harvesting less tonnage and then using the technology, they're getting more than what they even expected. That's why, and then it's also contributing a lot in our GDP, because, we can be able to produce a lot of maize using this particular technology.
The biggest impact is that this has been a huge growth in GMO crops in South Africa. So 78% of the maize in South Africa is actually genetically modified, either for pest resistance or herbicide tolerance, or a combination of both. But that's maize, cotton and soya. All of these are very highly genetically modified.
South Africa has cultivated the herbicide-tolerant soybean since 2001. All of the soybeans now produced in the country are genetically modified.
Economic benefits is that more income comes to the farmer, which means that he's able to invest more into his farming operations. Also more time, in the sense that, for instance, herbicide-tolerant crops, you cut the time that you will be spending on weeding, and then you can divert your time to other parts of your business. Those are really the major key benefits. You can get yield increases of more than 10%. In terms of herbicide-tolerant crops, you're going to cut a lot on management costs at farm level by weeding, and that can also increase your yield benefits.
The country's nationals say no adverse health effects have been recovered from the consumption of the genetically modified maize or soybeans. There have been no environmental hazards either.
There's a lot of misinformation about GM crops. So South Africa has not experienced any negative impact in terms of human health from our GM crops. And you need to recognize that maize is our staple diet, and we're eating it every day since 1998. So we have been eating the food, and there have been no reported cases of ill effects. There was one concern that maybe a GM maize pollen was causing an allergic reaction, but in the follow-up where we checked to see if this was in fact the case, the person was allergic to maize pollen, and it wasn't GM related. So South Africa has not had any human health related impact. We need to use science and evidence to actually promote an awareness of what the impact of GMOs are. There's a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of people that have beliefs that GMOs are bad, but the scientific evidence says that there is no negative impact to humans and to the environment from GMOs.
South Africa, for example, 80% of our crop is mainly GM. And then I'm telling you, I like cereals. And then I make sure that every day in the morning there are cereals. And then I haven't had any problem, any problems. And then the same applies to my family. We never experienced any problems. And then even my extended families, I never heard that there are some other people who were complaining about. But you might find out there are these aunties who some of them might discredit the technology. But anyway, I haven't heard anyone complaining about that about the technology or the side effects of the technology.
The promoters of biotechnology in Nigeria say the country should take a cue from South Africa to improve its agricultural sector's productivity.
This is what I have been preaching, that the technology has been proven to be useful, to be beneficial. There's no side effects so far, right from the time the commercialization started. That's from 1996 to date. In all the countries that this technology has been used, there is no any evidence against it. There is no any proof that somebody died because of eating genetically modified foods or what.
Let us have the technology side by side with the conventional technologies. We're not saying that biotech will replace the conventional technologies, but it's another tool for the advancement of agriculture. So it is our hope that, my message rather, to teaming Nigerians is to accept this technology because it doesn't have any adverse effects. It's grown here in South Africa. Their fellow Africans are eating it. They are not complaining. And so I think that I feel that people should open their minds to evidence and science-based facts, not innuendos that have no scientific basis.
Research is presently ongoing in South Africa on genetically modified cassava resistant to the mosaic virus. There is also research on developing fungal and viral resistant grapevines to enable them resist environmental stress and improve grape berry quality. South Africa remains the 9th largest producer of genetically modified crops in the world. The country's Academy of Science describes the GM technology as an exciting opportunity to help solve Africa's food and nutrition security problem.
You're still watching Agribiotech, and I'm seated right in the middle of a massive BT cotton farm in Limpopo province of South Africa. That is the northern part of the country, and I'm being joined at this moment by the Chief Executive Officer of Africa Bio. Africa Bio is a biotechnology stakeholders association here in South Africa. It's good to have you join us on the program.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting me.
You're welcome. Talking about Africa Bio, what exactly is Africa Bio all about?
Africa Bio is a stakeholder association that is based in South Africa, and we are formed by our members, and our members come from industry, they come from professionals at academia, they come from just general laymen that believe in biotechnology. So we support all of our members with knowledge about biotechnology, what needs to be happening in biotechnology, but also we help them to do demonstration trials on some of the technologies in biotechnology.
And what exactly do you hope to achieve with your intervention?
We believe that Africa needs to start adopting technologies towards its economic growth, and through biotechnology we aim to assist farmers to uptake biotechnology as one of the technologies that can be used to grow their produce and to sustain issues of climate change and issues of the new pests that are coming in. So we want our farmers to be able to know what technologies exist throughout the world and how to adopt them and adapt them to the African farming practices.
Taking you down memory lane, how did the use of biotechnology for agriculture in South Africa all start, and what exactly prompted it?
At a certain stage, the South African government needed to grow the agricultural sector, and at that time, around about in the 1990s and so forth, there was this new technology which was coming up and was being demonstrated throughout the world that is a way to go when it comes to growing crops. And so the government took a decision to say, we have a lot of research that is happening in the country, a number of research institutions that are already having a knowledge of this technology. How then can we start to put mechanisms in place to be able to adopt the technology, to be able to monitor the technology, but also to do all the risk assessment regarding the technology. So what prompted the government was to make sure that we're not left behind as the world is developing this technology, but also we've got all the systems in place to make sure that we test the technology, we assess it, and more important, if we adopt it, we have mechanisms of making sure that it doesn't run out of control.
How much has biotechnology done for the South African agricultural sector?
I think it has actually helped our agricultural sector quite a lot. And if you may remember, around about 3-4 years ago, we had serious drought in the country, and most of our maize farmers, the corn farmers, they struggled to grow their maize. But those that were growing biotechnology were actually able to sustain the whole sector and to be able to demonstrate that that biotechnology was the way to go. So it helped us as a country to increase our yields in corn, in soya, and in cotton. And as you may know, we are ranked number 9 in the whole global space as a country that has grown biotech in the world. So biotech has actually helped SA agriculture to be one of the leading in the continent, basically.
In specific terms, what has it done for the cotton industry, the maize output, and soybeans?
There are 3 crops in South Africa that have been approved for commercial release in GM. It's those 3, which is maize, which is cotton, and which is soy. And through them, we've seen the emergence of new farmers that are now adopting this technology, like the farm that we're in at the moment in time, where it was started as a small farmer, but using the GM technology, they're using very less chemicals and sometimes very less water. But their yield has actually increased greatly compared to what it was before. So the technology has helped our small-scale farmers to be able to start to compete with the big farmer and the large-scale farmers, but also to be able to use less inputs but getting higher yields than it would normally have been.
From what I understand, the bulk of the cotton produced here is genetically modified.
Yes.
What has this done for the cotton industry here in South Africa?
It has revitalized the industry greatly. As you may know, the industry suffered quite a lot about 10-15 years ago when there was a lot of pests that were starting to attack the industry, and the yields were going down quite drastically. So with the adoption of this technology, we're seeing now more of the farmers starting to show the increase in the yield, but also there's a less and less burden of diseases, especially of some of these pests that are known to affect this. So by adopting the GM, it has actually helped most of the industry to actually get back into what it has to be. We are not yet reaping the commercial benefits of it, especially the cotton industry, because it's still coming up, but we are seeing signs that within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be having one strong cotton industry all over again as a country. But with cotton and with maize, with maize and with soy, you know that we're now one of the leading producers of maize, and the country is actually on a stable environment when it comes to food security, purely because of what is being planted, which is a GM corn.
Are these commodities exported from South Africa to other parts of the world? Talking about the cotton, the maize, and the soybeans.
Yes, some are being exported, and even though the export is not that much high, especially with the cotton, but we are exporting them even to some European countries, mainly for the feed industry. And yeah, there is a growing export of the industry. Obviously, there are certain African countries who still don't want to import our corn because they believe that it's all GMOs. But we are hoping that through education and through changing their policies, and especially driven by the pressure from the climatic changes and so forth, they're going to start to see that there's actually nothing wrong with the technology. They're going to start to want to see the imports of some of these commodities from South Africa to them. But yes, the Europeans, they as you know, Europe imports GMOs for their feed industry.
One of the strongest arguments against the use of biotechnology for agriculture is the fact that it has adverse effects on human health and it also degrades the environment. I don't know if any of these scenarios has been seen in South Africa from the use of this technology for agriculture.
It's unfortunate, because the GM technology has been there for a while, and there are certain medical products that are GM produced that people use freely, but when it's food, they start to wonder. We start to wonder why they are so anti them. There's never been any incidents in South Africa that in any other country that I know of that has been demonstrated to have been caused by GM foods. And moreover, the rigorous process that governments take to make sure that before any product is released, is quite stringent, quite high, more than any other technology, But still, the GM technologies, they pass all these regulatory authorities to show that much as the fear is there, but it's just fear driven not necessarily by any science or any proof. It's just fear driven by people who's just against the technology. So there's no such adverse effects that have been demonstrated globally.
This technology has come a long way in South Africa. It's close to 21 years. So what is the future for this technology in the country?
The future for biotech broadly is that we are seeing the emergence of new technologies that are starting to be used internationally, like the new breeding technologies, for example, the gene editing, synthetic biology, and some of the tools that are being used. And we believe in South Africa that we've got to learn these technologies, adapt ourselves to be able to adopt these technologies, and using our systems, our science systems that we've got in the country, our regulatory authorities when necessary, to make sure that as we adopt these technologies, we answer all the questions that people might have about them.
In Nigeria, there's a lot of bad publicity about this technology for agriculture, and there's a lot of skepticism in the air. What will be your message to Nigerians out there, talking about policymakers, farmers, seed dealers, and even the activists who speak out vehemently against this technology?
My message to Nigeria is that Nigeria is one of the leading economic hubs in the continent, and they need to start to look at these technologies and other drivers of their economic driver in the country. Secondly, there is nothing fearful about GM technologies. South Africans have been using GM technologies. The rest of the world, in many parts of the world, have been using GM technologies. Unfortunately, the activists, the antis, they always want to find faults and send false messages that are not backed by any science, and that affects the small-scale farmers who want to use this technology. That affects the economies of the countries that are not necessarily taking these technologies, and eventually it's just an economic question to say what is it for them to benefit, whereas there's absolutely nothing wrong with this technology. As you can see, you've been in South Africa for a while and you haven't seen anyone who has 4 limbs or 5 limbs or any nature that has been caused by GM technology. So my message to Nigeria is take this technology, put the systems in place, let the farmers use the technology, see the difference, and then let's see how they, as the people that are producing the food, can benefit out of it.
Very well spoken, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Thank you, madam. It was my pleasure.
And I've been speaking with the Chief Executive Officer of Africa Bio, which is a biotechnology stakeholders association here in South Africa, Siyabulela Untutela, on the many benefits of biotechnology for agriculture. At this point, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll be speaking to the man behind this massive BT cotton project here in South Africa. Do stay with us. And joining me on the program is the man behind this massive BT cotton plantation here in Limpopo, South Africa. He has farmed this particular variety for 19 years, and I can tell you he has a lot of experience to share with us on the show. Franz Malila, it's good to have you join me on Agribiotech.
Thank you, madam.
What has been your experience with farming the BT cotton for 19 years, as you told me earlier?
Yeah, it's not easy to farm with this biotech, but it's easy once you can have the lessons from the seller, those they're selling the seeds, because you've got a certain regulation to plant it.
What specific challenges associated with farming cotton as this particular variety helped to address?
Yes, the challenge with the conventional is because we'll have to spray many times, and you're going to spray the worms. And on the biotech, we're not going to spray for the worms. We're going to use less spraying, and you're going to get a better cotton.
What are the major differences between farming this particularly genetically modified variety and the conventional variety?
When we're planting a BT cotton, you got enough time to work some other things, and we're not going to come many times in the field. Once you spray everything, and the yield will be better because it's nothing that is going to worry your balls. And after that, when you take it to the market, it hasn't got any spots like the worms, they've been chewing it, and that's why we got I think is the better yield, because we're going to for 1.2 to 1.5 ton per hectare.
In terms of investment, if you compare how much is being invested to farm the conventional variety and the BT cotton, what will be the difference?
To plant a BT cotton is cheaper because we don't have to spray many times. When we planted the conventional, the seed is cheaper, but the work is plenty work. The BT cotton is much cheaper than the conventional.
How profitable is planting the BT cotton variety?
Yeah, there's a much difference, because on conventional you can harvest about 500, and on a BT cotton you can harvest 1,000 to 200, 1,200 to 1.2, and the profit exactly, the profit is going to be on the BT side, because we got more yield. You got more yield, and the conventional you got less yield.
If you had the option of farming the conventional variety instead of the BT cotton variety, would you gladly do that?
That I can't do that. I can rather leave if I manage to go back to the conventional. I can rather leave farming and sit at home.
Thank you very much, Franz Malila. It was great speaking with you on the program. And at this point, we call it a day on Agribiotech for today. Keep sending in your emails to agribiotech1@yahoo.com. You could send us a tweet at agribiotech13 or comment on our Facebook page, Agribiotech on TVC. I am Lara Afolayan. See you next time.